Hello and welcome to Bar Snacks. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down a new document that's just been published by the US government about United States-United Kingdom trade negotiations after Brexit going forward. There was a little piece put in the Financial Times earlier today that I thought was very interesting about potential negotiation of a trade deal between the US and the UK. And here I have the actual document, the actual 18-page document which has been published by the Office of the United States Trade Representative, which is Robert Lighthizer's department in the US government, and it is a summary of specific negotiating objectives that the US is going to try and achieve in their UK negotiations. As a British person myself, I find this particularly interesting. There are bigger stories going on in the world this week, but I wanted to break this one down because I feel like there was not enough coverage of it, and it's quite interesting and potentially has quite large consequences for the economic state of the UK going forward. This document essentially contains everything that the US is going to try and achieve when it negotiates with the United Kingdom following Brexit. And reading through this document as a British person, it seems there's nothing in it for the UK, and the US are going to be definitely tough on the UK, going to try and press their issues and get themselves a beneficial deal, and we may have to cede something to them. But actually, we should take this as a good sign because it means that the US is definitely willing to start negotiating with the UK. Even at such an early stage, we haven't even decided on a deal with the EU yet. Potentially, Brexit could be delayed another couple of months, so having this here is a really good sign that the US is willing to do business with us. And everything in here is just a kind of opening gambit by the US, trying to get as much as they possibly can. So our first section is trade in goods, specifically agricultural goods, and I'm going to read in full the aims that they've tried to include here. So I'll start with secure comprehensive market access for US agricultural goods in the UK by reducing or eliminating tariffs. Securing comprehensive market access for US agricultural goods is a big undertaking in the UK. That would be quite a win for the US considering how much trade already occurs between the two nations. It says up here, two-way trade totaling more than 230 billion US dollars. This second point is definitely more interesting, however. It says, eliminate practices that unfairly decrease US market access opportunities. So, and it specifically specifies non-tariff barriers. Of course, it has tariff rate quotas beneath that, but the fact that it specifies non-tariff barriers is quite an intriguing one, because as we'll see in the next section, these two are kind of combined. In sanitary and phytosanitary measures, one of their main goals is to establish a mechanism to remove expeditiously unwarranted barriers that block the export of US food and agricultural products in order to obtain more open, equitable, and reciprocal market access. And what they're referring to is that the US has lower food standards than the UK. There are more genetically modified foods, more hormones in their meat, and more pesticides and fertilizers used in the growing of their crops. And having more US agricultural imports is a hot topic across the EU and within the UK. Previously, during EU-US trade negotiations, the US tried to push this point specifically and was met with an unprecedented level of coldness. It's a very sensitive issue, and it's because of those lower food standards. They're seen as very undesirable across the bloc and in the UK. For example, the US allows high fructose corn syrup in their fizzy drinks, whereas in the UK that's a banned substance. There's also plenty more unnatural colours and E numbers that are allowed in US food. And it's because of this that US food definitely has a pretty bad brand within the UK. And that's why this is such a sensitive issue for the government. If the US really tries to push this hard, I can see this going one of two ways. Either the UK cedes their desires, which would be horrendous publicity for the UK government considering how badly American foods are regarded, or it's just going to hit a brick wall, which is definitely the most likely one. I do not think the US can achieve comprehensive market access for their agricultural goods and something that removes barriers blocking US goods. To have more US food on UK shelves seems like a loss for the UK, so I don't think these two are going to happen. But we'll move on to the next one. Point 2 is within the investment section of this document, and it's establish rules that reduce or eliminate barriers to US investment in all sectors in the UK. Obviously, this is quixotic, this is an ideal. These negotiating goals are what they get in a perfect world. But this one is definitely not going to happen. But it might show some bit of positivity for the UK. How the US is politically right now with its anti-globalist stance and it's looking to bring everything into the US, I think that this shows that they are quite supportive of a Brexit movement and will be open to pouring quite a bit of money into the UK, and I think that could be beneficial for the UK. So I think that this could definitely be something that gets through in the negotiations, and we could be seeing more US investment in the UK in the future. Okay, on to general provisions. So this one's very interesting. Provide a mechanism to ensure transparency and take appropriate action if the UK negotiates a free trade agreement with a non-market country. This is obviously referring to countries with more planned government-based economies, maybe more public than private, such as, let's have a think, China, right? This is obviously showing the US anti-China stance coming through. This is very telling, very interesting actually, that I don't know the details of what take appropriate action means, but it says a lot about how hard the US is willing to press into China. And this will definitely raise a few eyebrows when it's so specifically worded like this. The next point says, with respect to commercial partnerships, there's a lot here about the US and Israel. Obviously, the US and Israel are great geopolitical allies. The US has been funding Israel for many years, and UK-Israel relations aren't the most solid. I've looked at a few opinion surveys from the British and the Israeli public throughout the years, and they regard us as a friend, but definitely views on Israel are mixed by the British public. This looks like the US trying to push their political agenda, and I don't know how successful this is going to be, considering that it's not like the UK and Israel have strong diplomatic ties, such as the US does have with them. I don't know what will possibly come out of this one, but it's just quite an interesting point. You can see through the general provisions and through this document in general, the US trying to, in a quite strong manner, push their political agenda, and I'm not sure how well that's going to go down in the US-UK negotiations. But we move on to the last point, currency. It says, ensure that the UK avoids manipulating exchange rates in order to prevent effective balance of payments adjustment or gain an unfair competitive advantage. Having got the impression of Trump that I have, this seems like straight up Trump speak. I'm not sure how manipulating exchange rates in order to gain these things is even possible, but it seems like Trump seems to think it's possible. I know Trump didn't write this, but it seems like something Trump would make sure they put in, because I don't even know how this one has bearing, really. Definitely raise a few eyebrows. The Financial Times actually commented on this one specifically, in that it's strangely worded and quite ambiguous. But anyway, that's a little breakdown of some interesting things in the US-UK negotiations, US negotiating objectives document. I'll see you in the next one. I've been Bar Snacks.